Today's the day we're firing up this $1,500 boat. We're gonna see what we can do to get this engine running. So stay tuned as I walk you guys through the step-by-steps of getting an old engine fired up for the first time in a while. So to start off, we're gonna be going through some visual checks over the engine to make sure it's not leaking excessively, the wiring's intact, and seeing if we can find anything visible on the outside of the engine that might be a problem. So to start off, we're gonna take a look at the wiring on this guy. You can see that they put some sort of trailer wiring on here. That's interesting. What do you think, Artem? You excited to get this fired up?
Maybe, yeah. I think it's started. Why not?
Looks like it's in pretty good condition right now too, eh? So yeah, just first of all here, so this is the water intake to cool the engine down. See, it runs up and along there. And then it goes into this little box here, and it'll actually cool the oil down as well from these external lines. You see that, Artem?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we have a hose that came off there. We'll figure out where that went.
Maybe this one.
Oh yeah.
Like this one.
That looks like the shoe fits. Here's the gear clamp for that too. Typically you'll find those lines disconnected when they winterize the engine, so they'll be blowing out all of the water that's stored in the exhaust manifolds in an effort to, obviously keep it from cracking when the temperature gets a little colder and the ice begins to expand. Now, it's always good to do full visual inspections because you'll find lots of funny little stuff like this. These are completely loose. This isn't something you want as a surprise when you're out in the water. So we'll take a look down here at the carb system. Oh, it looks pretty good, looks original. Sometimes you get people messing around with these and they're held on with really funny ways, but this looks pretty good. Take a look at the fuel bowl here. You can see some of the fuel in there. It's always best practice to kind of clean these things out, but we'll have to take a look at that. Hopefully there's no contaminants in there. And then actually to prime these old boat engines, it has this little handle right here. So you just give this a couple of pulls and you can see, oh yeah, look at that sediment. Look at all of that garbage in there. Yeah, so we're gonna be cleaning that out before we get it started. Just to keep any of that debris clogging up these carburetors and making it a little bit more difficult for us. I'll take a look at the front of the engine. Now, similar to an automotive engine, you got your belt on here controlling the generator for the system. This is a 6-volt system. And the reason I know that, sometimes these generators can be 6 or 12 volts. But the easiest way to tell what this one is running, just to take a look at the coil, you can see on there it says 6 volt. Quite often you can change the internals of these, put on a new regulator, and keep the old generator and make it run 12 volts. So it's always important to just double check what your system's actually running before you fire it up. If you put 12 volts to a 6-volt system, it's not going to be too happy. So now we're just going to take a little peek inside of the distributor and see what we're working with in there. Now this is always important to do for a number of reasons. You have your points down there. You want to make sure that you're getting good contact on them. You want to make sure that the rotor is in good condition and that the cap is in good condition as well. If you have any sort of corrosion on those terminals, it may affect your ability to start this engine up. So let's just take a little peek here at what we're working with. See if the camera can zoom in on that. So yeah, you can see how there's a little bit of wear and tear on there. And that just creates kind of a poor spark in the system. So it's always good to just, if you can, get a little bit of sandpaper and kind of clean those edges up to get rid of any of the debris. As well as this part here, because that's actually where the rotor will ride on. And then if you take a look at the rotor itself, You can see there is quite a bit of debris on the very tip of that. That's where the spark will be jumping from. And there's a little bit of rust on there too. So we'll be touching this up with a little bit of sandpaper to clean it up and make sure that we have good spark. If you take a look at the points there, and that's just coming off of this little arm here, you can see that there is quite a bit of wear on there, as in there's been some hot spark and you have a little bit of burning on those edges. You want to make sure that these points are lined up evenly and that the spacing is correct. Again, this is a performance issue, but it could lead also to a poorly running engine. Inspect the front face of both of them, and again, maybe just taking a little bit of sandpaper and just cleaning those edges up so you get a nice clean spark when this motor is running. And then we'll just take this guy right here and very gently on the face of it, you can see how much better that is. You don't have to go too crazy, we're just trying to get the surface rust off of it. And we'll just take this little piece of sandpaper, we don't want to push down too hard so that we bend this. We just want to kind of get some of that rust off of the surface. It doesn't have to be perfect, but again, we just want to make this nice and clean so we have a solid spark coming through here. It gives our chances of this motor running nice when it starts up just kind of a higher chance. For the points, we're just going to gently open this up a little bit so we can get our sandpaper. Oh, it's annoying. There we go. Hopefully that stays. And again, we're not trying to take too much material off here. Our main focus is just to lightly brush the edge of this. Clean up any residual surface rust. There you go. It's not perfect, but if we have any more issues, like when it's running per se, then we'll take a look at that and see if maybe that's something we can adjust. And then for these little areas, you're just going to want to fold this up a little bit smaller so you can get in there. And you're just going to be touching it on the front surface of this. Again, we're not trying to remove material, we're just wiping away some of that rust. You can see it shining a little bit nicer in the camera there. That's kind of what we're looking for. So I'm going to go around and do all of these, and then also I'm going to be trying to get some of this little white rust off of here as well, and make sure that this contact is nice and clean. There we go. Got that all cleaned up and shining. That should create quite a nice spark. And don't forget to put your router back on before you put the distributor back together. So we're going to pull the plug off. I got this one loosened already. I'm just going to take a look at the spark plugs. So we're going to be looking here. We can see there's quite a lot of ash on the spark plug. The gap on the plug is pretty consistent. It doesn't seem to be worn at the edge. It's very straight and flat, so there hasn't been a lot of burning. I'd say these are fairly new to when the engine was built. I'm not too concerned with this plug. Looks pretty good. The other thing is I don't see a lot of oil on here, if any oil at all, so I know that there's no oil leaking into the cylinder head. Now it is good practice to check all of the plugs, but I'm just trying to get a grasp on what we're dealing with before we get it started up. So for now it looks pretty good, so we'll put this back together and we'll keep on going. And then obviously you want to make sure you're checking your oil too before you get it started. So what you're looking for in this oil actually looks pretty good. Looks like we're missing a little bit of the dipstick on the end of there. That's kind of concerning. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it's been broken off on the end. What you're looking for is any sort of metallic flaking in the oil, which is a bad sign that something has been chewed up, like this dipstick end. Any sort of clouding in there on an automotive application, you'd have coolant, so it would get in there and you get the kind of white puffy clouding, but seeing as this is a boat, we're not going to have that issue per se. It'd be more just straight water. And then the other thing too is we're just going to be smelling it for the smell of gas to see if maybe some gasoline is getting down into the oil system, which can happen if your rings are starting to fail or if you flood it. So looks pretty good. Let's give it a little sniff. Obviously you're going to want to check the level too, so let's wipe this off of there. I have no idea if this dipstick is correct because it's broken on the end, but let's just assume it's somewhat accurate. If it is accurate, that's right on the money. That would be your minimum low. That would be your high. It's right on the money right now, so I'm happy with what I'm seeing. And then lastly, we're going to be cleaning out this fuel bowl here because I didn't like the sediment that I was seeing in there. And I'm just going to pull this over to the side, drop this bowl out, make sure I have something underneath it because this is a wooden boat. I just don't like fuel going everywhere in a wooden boat. And yeah, we'll get that all cleaned out. A bit of access down there. Wow, that is an old hose. Alright. So this little dial under here, you're going to turn it left, loosen it up, and then once it's loose, you can undo this little part here and get the bowl out of place. See, some of the fuel is starting to come up there. That looks pretty gross. Here we are. Looks like we have to go through the bottom. All right, there we are. Look at that crud in the fuel system. Now, if we fire that up, that is going directly into the carburetors. I don't know if there's more of this in the rest of the fuel system or if that's just what's in the bowl here. It did come with a full tank of gas, so we might have to take a look in there and just see if there's any more debris. But in the meantime, we're just going to fill this up again after getting cleaned out. We'll prime the system and then we'll see kind of what else comes into the fuel system after that. So we've done our check over of the engine. We addressed any tiny little issues that might cause some problems starting it. So now we have our 6-volt battery hooked up to the engine as well, and we're going to try starting it. So let's see what happens. So we tried priming the fuel system again, and you can see more of that junk just came out of there. I'm not confident whatsoever that the fuel in that tank is going to be good. So what we're just going to do is we're going to set it up to this jerry can over here and get it running off of some fuel that I know is good, and hopefully get whatever little bit of junk is in there out of the system. I really don't want to have to take these carburetors apart and have to clean them up, but if it has to happen, so be it. But obviously you want to do everything you can to prevent any major repair on the engine. So we're just going to quickly go through the fuel system here, take the line off, find somewhere we can hook up the jerry can, and see if we can get started. It's like gold panning. So here's the fuel shut off. For some reason they put a sprinkler shut off in line with the fuel system. Not a fan of this. We're going to be replacing that. That is definitely not fuel rated. Let's just take a look at what comes out of this. Just going to open this up straight from the gas tank. Look at the color of that gas. Let's take a peek at what we got. Very discolored. This gas is all going to have to be replaced. This is the tank here. This is actually a lead tank. You can see they've welded it together with the lead, but this is gross. This is going to get drained. We're going to have to clean this out. Hopefully no more of the sediment is going to be in the lines once we get it running, but we'll hook up our jerry can to this end of the fuel line and see if we can get started that way. So we finally got this filled up and cleaned out of all that debris that was in there. We have it hooked up to a jerry can, and you can see the difference There's still a little bit of sediment in the bottom. We've been kind of cleaning it up as we go, but you can see the difference of like volume coming into the bowl now. Now obviously all of that's being pushed directly into the carburetor, so I'm not going to go too crazy, but now we know we have some good fuel coming in here. We'll clean out one more time to get this debris out, and then we should be good to go. So we got a fresh battery on there, so it's cranking a little bit faster too. Just make sure that we have fuel coming in here still. So we got good spark, hopefully. We'll check that. What I'm going to do is just pop this off. You can put a test light in there. You can put a screwdriver to ground. Personally, I don't mind just putting my finger in there. So Artem, you want to just quickly crank that over, and I'll let you know if it's got spark. Ow, yeah, that is got spark. Alrighty. It's got good spark too. I know the difference between good and bad spark, man. It's sharked enough. Okay. Okay, fire it up again. Oh. Perfect. Okay, so you want to pull the choke all the ways out. Perfect. And then the gas, we're just gonna, you want to just give it a couple of pumps when you do this. 1 or 2. And then start it up again. There we go. Yeah. Perfect. Now we're not going to let this get too hot. We don't have it hooked up to a cooling system right now. We just want to verify that the thing's actually running. So we're going to fire up one more time, very briefly. I'd say 30 seconds to a minute maximum. You don't want these heads to get too hot. And once we're confident that it's running, everything works properly, then the next step is going to be pulling the engine out of the boat. We'll refurbish, carburetors, clean it up, make it look nice, and then we can get flipping this boat over as well to do the repair on the bottom. Sitting at just under 20. We're not seeing any charging, so the battery's pretty good. That's hooked up to a jerry can, and hopefully this works. I have no idea, but looks like the RPM works on here. That's about all we're going to let it run for. We don't have it hooked up cooling, but it seems to be running pretty good. We don't seem to have any major issues with it, so yeah. So we got it disconnected at the fitting that goes up to the sprinkler there, little sprinkler tap. And then we ran a hose from there to there, still nothing. Blew on the copper line, it was plugged up. So then we ran a line straight from that tank directly to the intake of the fuel bowl there. Now, I'm not sure where that corrosion is coming from. It's a good possibility it's the tank. It's a good possibility that this tap has something to do with it. It could even be the lines just had junk in them. Hard to tell for sure, but the next step, once we get all of this out, we're going to drain it, and then I'll show you guys in the upcoming series how to clean an old gas tank. And again, the whole point of the series is that we're going to be showing you guys how you can do it at home with the tools that you have at home. You don't have to break the bank. So I'll show you how you can actually clean this out with chains and other materials like that, and you can get all the debris out of here and make sure that you have a good gas tank with no more debris in it. Obviously, any little chunk that gets through is going to cause issues like we had today. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Happy we got this thing up and running, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.